though in the.
So audience statements is.
Oh, gotcha.
is just for the budget.
Got
so
it.
We have to separate.
10-4, got it. Just wanted to double check that. All right. We'll go ahead and get the board meeting started. We first off wish this could be one of those situations where you could have class outside. We could have the board meeting outside, but first we'll go ahead and do a roll call.
Kevin Alltucker,
Here.
Denise Diamond,
Here.
Austin Polnaghy,
Here.
Lisa Fragala,
Here.
Steve Mattel, Zach Mulholland,
Here.
Shaylin Bays. Here.
All right. Next, we're before going into the budget hearing, we're going to have the land recognition. We have a representative from the student government. If you get a chance, go ahead and introduce yourself as well.
All right, thank you. My name is Sophie Gibson, and I'm a major. My major here at LCC is human services, and I'm also getting my certificate in drug and alcohol counseling. And I'll be the next successor of Shaylin here as president of the Student Government Association. So I feel really honored to come and share this land recognition with you guys. So here we go. I'd like to start our meeting with the acknowledgement that the land we are on is the traditional homelands of the Kalapuya people. The Kalapuya were stewards of this land for over 14,000 years before the traditional way of life was forever disrupted. We start our meeting with humanity and reverence for the original inhabitants, the Kalapuya. And so with that, I would like to take a moment just to respect the people that were here before on this land. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is an adoption of the agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Seconded.
Excellent. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of adoption of the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? The agenda has been adopted. I just wanted to also just make a note of the equity lens. I think it's also just really important during time periods of approving of a budget, going through the budgetary process, that we approach this with an equity lens. Feel free to refer to those documents there. Responses to information requests. Any questions, comments, or concerns about the information requests? All right, seeing none. Gavel into the budget hearing, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Mr.
okay.
Gallo, oh God, for like-
Excellent. Now that we've gone through those categories, we'll go ahead and gavel into the budget hearing. The public hearing for the FY 24-25 budget and supplemental budget. And sorry, 1 second here. And do we have a presenter? Yep.
I think it's now Chair Fonaghy, the public hearing. So I don't know if anyone has signed up for the public hearing.
White Anniker. Oh, here. We have one, and it's Wyatt Anniker online.
Okay.
So you might call
Wyatt Anniker.
Right.
Go ahead.
Good.
It's a budget meeting.
Wyatt, are you here to speak on during public comment or for the budget?
For budget.
For the budget. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I just want to speak on the turf field. My name is Wyatt Anniker. I'm a member of the SAFC committee and a member of the Lane baseball team. I came to Lane because I heard a lot of good things about not only the academics, but the baseball program. And it has been the best choice of my life. I've had a great time here and I'm proud to be a Lane Titan. However, I feel like sometimes I struggle to share that with everybody, and it would be a blast. It would be awesome to share that with teachers and students. Like my roommate, he never came to one game because they're too far away, and I don't blame him. So I'd love to be able to have that opportunity to play here and represent Lane well.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No other comments for the budget?
I think just ask someone else to show up. Just a second ago. Okay, yeah, we do have Alexander.
Alexander Brown,
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm speaking on behalf of the turf project for the baseball field, the renovation and rehabilitation of the baseball field as well. I'm an Oregon resident. I'm a parent of a student baseball player who really enjoyed his first year down there at Lane. I really appreciate the hard work you guys are doing here at the board meeting. I know you're volunteers, and I know you understand the importance of advancing and growing the college. So I want to draw attention to the mission statement for the athletics department, which highlights Lane's commitment to provide opportunities for students to enrich their college experience through participation on competitive athletic teams. And the baseball team is definitely competitive. Despite not having a home field for the last 2 years, they've been in the playoffs each time. We know that sports are important for the health and engagement of our students and for our communities. As a pediatric nurse, I can attest to the important role sports play in the physical and mental health of our youth. Sports connect students to schools and keep them engaged. Sports connect communities to school and keep them engaged. In a world where we have more and more online classes, having sports on campus is very important. Lane has done a really good job of redeveloping its soccer field, track field, and I even hear there's plans to develop potentially the largest regional pickleball courts there on campus as well. But in the middle of this is a baseball field that's been neglected for the last 2 years because of some just challenges with getting the turf project underway. The achievements we've got at the soccer field and the track field are great and valuable resources, and the turf-based baseball field should be there with them. Students need a field to play and practice on. The baseball team has been without a home field for 2 years. Final home games this season required the students to drive all the way to Albany to play on a field where the team that owns that field wasn't even playing. The community really needs these fields too. I talked to the parks director for Eugene, and they noted a lack of baseball fields, lack of full-size fields for the last 20 years. 6 4A high schools or 4 6A high schools and 20 high schools altogether, and no real all-weather fields for these kids to play on. A turf baseball field is a community need, but rather than be able to provide for the community, right now we've been relying on the generosity of other communities to provide for our team that has no field. One of the strategic directions on the mission statement is to create, enhance, and maintain inviting and welcoming facilities that are safe, accessible, functional, well-equipped, aesthetically appealing, and environmentally sound. Turfing the baseball field is consistent with Lane's strategic goals. Lane has a responsibility to its students and its community to maintain and renovate this field. Making it a turf field makes it an even better asset and saves on maintenance costs over time. Lane has an opportunity here to reinforce its commitment to its purpose and stand up as a leader and a home for community engagement. Thank you for your hard work here on the board, and thank you for understanding the importance of getting this project underway.
Thank you so much. Any further speakers?
no.
All right. With no further speakers, we'll go ahead and close out of the budget hearing committee. And we will resume the board meeting, which we will continue with public comment. Who's our first?
In person, we have David Eigel, followed by Dean Hansen.
Oh, yes, please do. And I've got more handouts afterwards if anyone else wants one. The U of O report describing Professor Frederick Dunn in the 1920s KKK isn't documented history. Rather, it's the projected fantasy of its authors. Prohibition enforcement, not white on black racism, was the primary espoused cause that the salesman presented to prospects. They described their order as patriotic, law-abiding, racially and religiously tolerant, composed of high-minded Christians who were supporters of law and order and anti-bootleggers. The salesman operated the chapter in its first year. They initially professed virtue, but soon interject bigotry, resulting in many members quickly disassociating. The salesman then began mass marketing to the lesser lights of the community, which is the ad I've shown you, as well as the newspaper explanation, telling an endless stream of lies to induce the lesser lights to buy memberships. Dean Sheldon's spring 1922 letter noted that some of these lies, several faculty members had joined the order. Professor Dunn was the leader. The Democratic gubernatorial candidate was a member, and a large number of U of O faculty were Jesuits in disguise. Sheldon wrote that these lies were wild rumors and that the whole thing was silly. The core piece of evidence the U of O Dunn report used to establish that Frederick Dunn was the Eugene Exalted Cyclops was a list including Dunn's name. The list isn't authentic. Its use by the report authors in this manner constitutes academic fraud. I just learned that this within the past year. The only source of anyone ever associating Dunn with the Klan were the sales representatives who were attempting to dishonestly use Dunn's prestige, and only during the first year when they controlled the chapter. Dunn didn't write or speak in favor of the Klan or any of its political causes. Eugenians never associated Dunn with the Klan. The U of O president's office claims to have incontrovertible evidence that Dunn was Eugene's exalted cyclops, an anti-Catholic, but won't share it. If it should exist, their evidence isn't valid. In 2022, Schill submitted a long list of his U of O accomplishments prior to becoming Northwestern University's president. This was after I had published my article on the Dunn denaming scandal. In 2017, Schill's New York Times op-ed trumpeted the denaming as a great accomplishment. His 2022 list completely omitted any mention of the denaming. I've come here today, first, as educators, to let you know what's going on. For example, the Lane County History Museum's directors, including Jennifer Ye, have been fired thanks to my expose, which I've got a link to my website that you can look at, so full of misinformation. I'll be in touch about other actions I might ask you to, including simply asking the U of O administration to come up with the facts or admit that something wrong's gone on, and it is very wrong. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you.
Dean Hanson.
Dale go before me.
Okay, Dale Hartley, followed by Dean Hanson.
Good evening, or good evening. My name is Dale Hartley. A little history on me. I was the assistant head baseball coach here at Lane Community College from 1996 to 2000. I was also the baseball fundraising coordinator during that era. And my time here, we won 5 Southern Division championships. And in 1999, 25 years ago, a week from yesterday, we won the first NWAC championship in school history in baseball. I'm now a senior vice president and senior financial advisor for the Hartley Group at Merrill Lynch here in Eugene. And I'm a longstanding community volunteer serving on numerous nonprofit boards. In 2002, this college decided to cut the baseball program after the completion of that season. That particular team won the second NWAC championship in school history that season, despite knowing they were going to be cut. Dean Hanson and I lobbied for over a year with the LCC board to save the baseball program. We were granted the right to privately fund that program, but under the agreement, we would bring an additional comparable women's varsity sport to Lane. We privately funded the men's varsity baseball program and started the varsity women's soccer program in 2003. We privately funded these programs through 2007, and in 2008, these programs were put back in the athletic budget, and thankfully, 21 years later, they're still viable and thriving. All 10 varsity sports programs at Lane made the postseason in this past 2023-2024 year. That's the first time in school history. The baseball program at Lane has been a perennial power in the Northwest for over 30 years. They've made the postseason continuously every year, despite not having a home baseball field for the past 2 seasons. In 2008, 2009, a bond was passed by the voters of this county that included outdoor classroom remodeling. Baseball was proposed to be in that bond measure, but after the inner track was turfed and the soccer turf fields were built, sadly, the baseball field was not done. Recently, another bond was passed by the voters of Lane County that included funding for a new turf baseball complex, as well as inner track and soccer field renovations. My understanding is the inner track and soccer field renovations have been completed, but once again, the baseball field project seems to be in question. The baseball program and student athletes here at Lane Community College deserve better. Having the resources of a quality community college baseball program at Lane is a valuable benefit, not only to this institution, but also the greater baseball community. In addition, Lane County lacks accessibility to quality athletic facilities in general, but baseball is grossly underserved. Besides 4 natural grass baseball fields located on 4J School District property, there is a single turf baseball field in Eugene at PK Park at the University of Oregon. The only other regulation 90-foot baseball field in all of Eugene is located at the Manor House Church campus on North Game Farm Road, which sadly we will be losing soon. Our baseball community deserves another 90-foot turf baseball field. This complex would be a valuable resource and something that could host high school baseball games as well as state tournaments, summer youth tournaments, fall showcases, and more importantly, a home that this baseball program could be proud of. I strongly encourage this board to approve and move forward with the LCC baseball complex. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. I never thought I'd be saving a baseball program. You know, I've served on many boards. I'm Dean Hansen. I've served on many nonprofit boards in the community. I was a banker in Eugene for over 40 years. And I'm very proud of the fact that, like Dale mentioned, 20 years ago, we decided to do whatever we could to fund baseball at Lane. And my son was playing on that team that won that NWAC championship. And my wife my wife was instructor here for over 30 years. My daughter is currently working on marketing and was successful in getting a 4-year business degree approved at Lane Community College. And now she's promoting it. And of course, my son played baseball here. And we've funded a academic scholarship. I consider myself a legacy here. I've served on the foundation board for a number of years, but we believe strongly when we were raising money to save baseball at Lane, we had a motto. The motto was, they come for athletics, they discover academics. And my son was a great example of that. He struggled academically in high school. He came here, he stayed for 3 years, got his transfer degree, graduated from the U of O, and he's a successful father, husband, businessman now. And it's what academics or what athletics does in this community or for this college is very important, and we need to continue it. And not having a field to play on is just scary, and it's unfortunate, and it's not acceptable. So I urge you to help us have a baseball program continue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Going online, we have Jen Kepka, Sarah Pittman, and Craig Zimmerman.
Good evening, President Bulger and the Board of Education. I'm Jen Kepka, the Director of Academic and Tutoring Services. And I'm here tonight to cheer for roughly 90 seconds about the great work that's done by our incredible team in academic and tutoring services. In a minute, you're going to hear from Sarah Pittman, our faculty coordinator, about the exceptional work she's done to lead our course embedded tutoring program to a new systematic approach to supporting student success, work that won Lane's Schaefer Award for Innovation this year. Sarah has also led an effort to instill further holistic supports that garnered one of the inaugural Lane Forward Fund grants. Through that work, next year we'll be able to provide childcare, food, and additional evening support for students who otherwise can't access academic support services at Lane. Sorry. Some of that support will happen downtown, where this year we've had a major expansion of our services. We've provided ESL and ABSE support downtown all year with nearly 1,300 appointments at the Mary's Ability Center. Next year, we're going to expand that support, teaming up with the Eugene Public Library. We've been awarded nearly $50,000 through the State Library of Oregon's Library Services and Technology Act grant program. And we'll use that money to partner with the Eugene Library to train community volunteers to provide tutoring and conversation groups to English language learning populations downtown. Those are our neighbors and community members, and perhaps potential Lane students. Our team of more than 50 tutors has held over 6,000 sessions this year and provided almost 5,000 working hours of direct support, in addition to the work done by course-embedded tutors in classes. This happens over our 10 different tutoring locations. That's 3 more locations than when I talked to you in the fall. And even while I'm talking, they are busy tutoring in our online support hub. They're open till 7 tonight if there are any students listening who need a little help preparing for finals. I'm proud and grateful to work with this team every day. We're thankful for the support we've received this year across campus and from the administration, and we look forward to another successful year focusing on supporting Lane's learners. Thank you for your time and consideration tonight.
Excellent. Thank you. Sarah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sarah Pittman with Academic and Tutoring Services. I have the pleasure of working with Jen Kepka and ditto to a lot of what she said, but I'm here to talk specifically about a program that I coordinate, which is Course Embedded Tutoring. If you're not familiar with what that is, it's a program that's designed to support student learning and success by pairing instructors with trained tutors from Academic and Tutoring Services. The tutors and instructors work together to create a plan to best support students in those classes. And so support can look really different from class to class. CETs or course embedded tutors might attend most of the classes. They might just meet with an instructor. They might have access to course materials in the Moodle shell, or they might even attend field trips and support special projects like undergraduate research happening in classes. This was our pilot year. We started in the fall, and we've had a total of 137 sections have some support of course embedded tutoring this year. That's reaching over 2,655 students within its first year in different subjects like English as a second language, ABSE, writing, math, science, business, art, and computer sciences. Each term, I work with institutional research to do some evaluation of the program. And one of the things that we do is send out a survey to students in course embedded tutoring classes, where so far we've discovered that 70% of students in a course embedded tutoring class strongly agree that a course embedded tutor helped them achieve their goals for the term. And there's also a great quote that I would like to share with the board from a student that says, "I just want to say that I'm so thankful that Lane Community College is now offering classes that have embedded tutors, because as a student, if I don't know where to go to get tutoring, it can be hard to ask for help sometimes. But having an embedded tutor in 2 of my classes this term has made it so much easier for me to ask for help when I was struggling with an assignment." And so I think that summarizes it better than I could do. So I thank the board for their time, and yeah, have a good evening.
Thank you so much. Is Craig next? Craig, go ahead.
Well, I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. By way of introduction, I'm Craig Zimmerman. My son Cole just completed his freshman year as a student athlete on the baseball team for Lane Community College, and really enjoyed his experience there with Coach Blunt. And we're grateful for the student athlete opportunity to compete and be a student at Lane. I'd like to give you a little bit of background. If you can just kind of bear with me in this little scenario, that your son or daughter enrolls at Lane Community College to take in-person classes, but arrives on campus and comes to find out that there are not enough available classrooms to have campus. So your 9 a.m. class happens to be relocated to Sheldon High School. You will then return for your 10:30 class at Lane, but then your 1 o'clock class is going to be in Springfield. So you're going to be doing this 5 to 6 days a week for 8 months. And just the wear and tear of the players' vehicles, the gas expenses that they incur, the liability and safety on being on the road, these additional hours going from point A to point B to point C, is a tremendous burden on them. And it's massively inefficient for the program to sustain itself when these young men are being asked to do something that no other student athlete at Lane is put under, or any student is put under. They are a group of 26 to 28 young men that are being asked to do something that no one else at Lane Community College is doing. And I think it's time to bring them into the umbrella of the remainder of the students at Lane and have the same opportunities of all the other student athletes and all the students as well. I thank you for your time this evening, for the opportunity to speak. And I hope that you will take the best interests of these fine young men into account as you consider funding the baseball project. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig.
Eric Kim, followed by Wendy Simmons and Paula Thani.
Good evening, Layton Community College Board of Education and Dr. Bolger. My name's Eric Kim. I teach psychology in the social science division. I'm here to talk about what students learn in psychology and the social sciences. Group membership can influence how you perceive yourself and others. This influence can be unconscious and automatic, making it difficult to notice. Last month, I had a visual illusion where a single shade of gray divided by a line led to the perception of two shades of gray. When we divide people into groups, it influences our perception of those groups. The outgroup homogeneity effect describes the tendency to perceive members of the in-group, us, as diverse, and members of the outgroup, them, as homogeneous, and can exaggerate differences between groups. For example, all of us men, we're all different from one another. But all you women, you're all alike. And the women, they're saying all of us women are different from one another, but all those men, they're all the same. Or all of us allied with Starfleet, Star Trek reference, are all different, but all of those allied with the Romulans, they're all the same. This can happen with Democrats and Republicans, religious affiliation, Gen X and millennials, ducks and beavers. There may be differences between groups, but we're inconsistent in how we talk about groups. Committing the outgroup homogeneity effect by saying we are unique, diverse, and special. But foreigners, the marginalized, the other political party, they're all the same, can be divisive. It can polarize groups, makes groups more extreme and less likely to cooperate. Learning about the outgroup homogeneity effect is important for at least two reasons. First, if you know about the outgroup homogeneity effect, you're more likely to notice these inconsistencies. Noticing the inconsistencies is difficult, but important to change the narrative from men are diverse, but all the women are the same, to both men and women are diverse, or the difference between men and women, they're so small, it's not relevant. Changing the narrative that reflects reality can reduce division, reduce prejudicial attitudes, and promote cooperation. Second, learning about it reduces bias and increases consistency. Being less biased and consistent is important for good leadership, good relationships, being civil, science, and development of expertise and critical thinking. Recognizing when you aren't consistent and learning to be consistent makes you a better person and makes you a better thinker. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members and President Bolger. I'm Wendy Simmons and I teach in the PE department. Faculty morale on campus has declined this year. The Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion has remained vacant. The fall term began with targeted retrenchments, including 3 faculty of color and 3 union leaders, many of whom would have been impacted because the administration did not follow official seniority lists. Faculty are aware that the faculty union filed unfair labor practice complaints, which detailed many concerning incidents, as well as widespread chilling effects and fear of retaliation among faculty at large. 2 of our highest ranking union leaders and colleagues who have been widely supported and repeatedly elected by our faculty with more than 96% of the vote received a false and defamatory anonymous letter filled with unfounded character attacks. This administration handled this inappropriately by immediately forwarding the unfounded letter, lacking any facts and written with the assistance of artificial intelligence to the Board of Education. These events culminated in a 4-day hearing. We are deeply saddened to see this after no unfair labor practice filed by the LCCEA had gone to a hearing in more than 2 decades. The administration recently received the results of the 2024 Gallup College Climate Survey. There were modest improvements in employee engagement, but the glaring results show how very low LCC has scored. The results are concerning and unsettling. One item was If I raised a concern about ethics and integrity, I am confident my employer would do what is right. LCC is in the 5th percentile. Only 5% of employers in the Gallup database scored lower than LCC, and 95% of work groups scored higher. Unethical practices lead to an erosion of confidence in an organization, both internally and publicly. This also harms employees, causing negative effects on their well-being and ability to function. For the statement, I always trust my institution to be fair to everyone, LCC is in the 6th percentile. A lack of trust at a workplace occurs because of poor communication, lack of transparency, and favoritism. It negatively impacts employee engagement and morale and discourages collaboration. For the statement, everyone at this institution is treated fairly regardless of individual differences such as ethnic background, race, age, disability, sexual orientation, gender, or gender identity. LCC is in the 8th percentile. Unfair treatment means any form of discrimination, bullying, or harassment that negatively impacts employees. Not only does this harm an employee's physical and emotional well-being, it leads to unequal opportunities and treatment. Furthermore, employees experiencing unfair treatment are less likely to stay at an institution. In exit interviews, colleagues have shared that they've left for this reason. Thank you.
I'm just going to finish Wendy's statement. My name is Paula Toney, and I will say that despite all of these concerns, we are working hard with our students, and it's just an added burden to be carrying, but we are definitely doing our best and loving what we do. Regarding the statement, at work, I am treated with respect. LCC is in the 13th percentile. A lack of respect in the workplace leads to employees feeling more stressed, emotionally unsafe, and less likely to want to participate in teamwork. According to Gallup research, not surprisingly, a lack of respect is directly related to discrimination and harassment. We want our community to be proud of our college, and we would like LCC to be a place of respect and collaboration, one that welcomes everyone equitably, especially people from historically oppressed groups. We ask you to provide the leadership to the administration to change course and to collaborate authentically with faculty and labor representatives. Thank you.
Yep.
No other comment.
No other comments? Right. There's no other comments for public comment signed up. We'll move on to the president's report. Dr.
Yeah,
Balger.
thank you. When I first recognized that this is Pride Month and we're looking forward to all of the events that are going to be happening this month. As we reach the end of a tremendous academic year, I want to take this opportunity to express my heartfelt gratitude to the Board of Education for your unwavering dedication and support. Your efforts have been instrumental in fulfilling our responsibilities to this great institution, and I deeply appreciate the time and commitment each of you has devoted to this role. I'd like to extend a special thank you to outgoing trustee Mike Eister for his dedicated service since 2017 and as former chair of the board. Mike Eister's contributions have been invaluable, and we are immensely grateful for his leadership and service. Last month, the Budget Committee, consisting of the Board of Education and 7 community members, passed a motion to move the FY25 budget forward to the Board of Education for approval. This budget represents a thoughtful and responsible plan for the college. Once approved, it will guide our financial operations with built-in points throughout the year to assess our expenditures relative to revenues. Through these efforts, we will ensure that our spending remains prudent and strategic. 3 weeks before the start of the summer term, preliminary numbers indicate an increase in enrollment, headcount, and full-time equivalent compared to last year. I continue to be inspired by the people at LCC. Last week, I had the privilege of accompanying one of our wheelchair-bound students on a tour around campus. This experience highlighted both the improvements we have made for accessibility and the work that remains to be done. I assured this student of our commitment to making our campus even more accessible, and I know our leadership is fully supportive of this goal. I am proud of the progress we have made and look forward to the work we will do together. And finally, I'm excited to extend a warm invitation to you for our upcoming events. Please join us at commencement on June 15th, where we will celebrate the achievements of our LCC graduates. Your presence would mean a great deal to our students and faculty. And that's my report.
Thank you so much. Next is the SGA report. President Biles.
Good evening, Board of Education and President Bolger. As we conclude this academic year, I'm honored to present the final report on behalf of the current Senate of the Lane Community College Student Government Association. It has been an eventful year marked by tremendous growth, learning experiences, and impactful projects. In recent weeks, we hosted several successful events on campus. Our finance event on May 14th was well received, with Musongo making it an engaging and enjoyable event, inviting on and off-campus partners to educate 60 students on finances and savings. The faculty expressed their interest in having more such events in the future. Our Spring Festival, which was a major hit, May 16th, with nearly 300 people attending. It was a fun-filled day for students. Some who were parents brought their kids and staff alike. These activities included a dunk tank, with special thanks to Calm for providing a great target. Bull riding and food were the main attractions. Council of Clubs and SGA worked together on this event and had 10 different student organizations participating. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, and we look forward to planning more such events in the future. As we transition towards the end of our term, we are handing over an ongoing project to the 2024-2025 SGA Senate, the Office Technology Update. Aman and Kyle had a productive meeting with Dennis Mills, where we discussed various options for tech upgrades. We are confident that this incoming Senate will continue this project effectively to support students in the Center 202 in the Student Life and Leadership Office. That is a focal point for students to connect, work together, and engage with the greater LCC community. Many of us are graduating, and it is with a sense of accomplishment and a touch of sadness that we prepare to pass the baton on to the incoming SGA Senate. We are confident that it will continue to serve the student body effectively and passionately. Those of us who are graduating or participating in commencement are Nicole, Josue, Gate, and myself. In addition to previous work, we are proud to mention our collaboration with the Academic Technology Center, which led to the creation of a Moodle page. This platform was welcomed by our student body, with over 240 students participating in our voting activities. Moreover, we want to recognize the new Senate members for 2024-2025 period. Sophie, who was just doing the land recognition, will be your new president. Jordan Zachary Myers will be vice president. And then the senators are as follows: Alicia Mendez, Aman, yes, Chad Edward Larson, Emma Duncan, Gay Kuliso, Kuliso Salia, Simon Galiso, and Zahra. They have all played crucial roles in our various activities, and their dedication and hard work have greatly contributed to our successes. In conclusion, we are grateful for your unwavering support in all of our endeavors and for the opportunities we have had to make a tangible difference in our campus activity. We look forward to seeing the continued growth and success of the SJ under the new Senate. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we move on to the consent agenda. Is there any items that want to be pulled from the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, just a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second? Second. Excellent. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Any abstentions? Consent agenda has been passed. Moving on to the action items. Resolution 694, President's Annual Authorization. Dr. Balcher.
Yes, thank you. And I will turn over the time to Kara Flath.
Hi, good afternoon. This is your annual request for any contracts exceeding 250,000. Some of the areas like utilities are estimations, but closest estimations we have It's kind of a lengthy list, but the large ticket items that you see on there are really debt service payments that we're required to make based on already legal obligations. Sir, would you like to go over everything, or would you have questions you want to pick through?
I just want to start with any questions maybe, but any questions from the board before we go through the list? Seeing none? Yeah. We're just covering some highlights and the list as well would be great.
Sure. So the top one is the cost for the college insurance. It's more the insurance agent, and they would cover any of the fees and any of the increases, buildings, industrial rate. You also have our PACE insurance, which is going to be covered within there. Any question, which is separate, is what I meant. PACE is down below with 1 million. So those two are kind of interrelated. This one is the agent that helps us acquire PACE, because PACE requires you to use an insurance agent. And then PACE is down below, which is actually your liability insurance for pretty much everything we do is $1 million. Do you want me to pause at each one? So I'm going to skip around and lump the ones together that kind of go.
Seeing no questions. Yep, you can continue. Yeah.
Keep going. Truth compliance and consulting, that's our retirement plan management and includes all of our payroll deductions. So the payroll deductions are going to be actually the employee's money, but this is kind of a pass through that is included in that particular contract. I'll just go slow and waiver. Dell laptops, Lenovo, Apple, those are lumped together. Sorry, I can't figure out where to put this. Computer purchased at state price agreements, and this I believe is an estimation. I'm looking at Laura. Yep, estimation based on what we do in the past. So it's going to include all of those purchase price agreements for technology. Okay. Illusion Company, this is really our software, banner software, and all of the costs associated with that. We functionally have to have our banner software and everything associated with that. That's a yearly cost. Okay. Eugene Water and Electric, estimated at $1 million. That one's pretty self-explanatory. Okay. I don't want to go into too much detail, so I'm going to pause and look around. Bookstore management, this one is also one of the items you just approved, but is $400,000, includes all of the managing of the bookstore and then pass through of all of the costs for books. Lane Transit Department, that's all of our bus passes. That is a fee that it is passed on to students, but this is on their behalf. National Public Radio, this is membership to the NPR, KLCC, and what the college owns for the license for that, $450,000. Nope. Okay. Northwest Natural Gas, literally the purchase of natural gas supply. Okay. Try not to slow you down. So OEB, our Oregon Educators Board, employee medical and dental, could include some short-term disability and, well, probably not short-term because PFMLA, but long-term disability, and any of those are associated with that. Payroll costs. Okay. P&A Group, same thing. The FSA employer, $1 million. That's also an associated payroll cost. PACE, went through that one. That one's $1 million. Standard insurance is going to include life, long-term disability, PFMLI, $531,000. That's also a payroll associated cost. The Lure Agency International Student Insurance is required for international students, estimated at $300,000. Okay. Titan Court Student Housing, payments to the Titan Court Student Housing Management Company, $810,000. Okay. TouchNet software maintenance, financial transactions, that's our ACH, and $350,000. Okay, US Bank, I will lump these together. It's going to include all of your the college's debt payments, which also includes the PERS bond obligation. The top two are the top one is the full faith and credit. That's going to be associated with your Titan Court. The other ones are going to be general obligation bonds and your PERS. It's like an investment bond. No questions? Okay.
Not seeing any questions right now. All right. It is recommended to the board that we authorize the president and her representative to pass resolution board resolution number 694. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion or Zach, any further questions or discussion?
No, there were no red flags. I think it's reasonable to approve this.
Excellent. So with any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstention? Excellent. The next resolution is in regards to Resolution 695, Distinguished Alumni.
Yes, we're pleased to bring this resolution to the board. It's an annual resolution, and I'll have Brett Roulette do that.
Hi, good evening. We are very honored to have Dr. Rachel Bittkoffer, an LCC alum, as our Distinguished Alum Award recipient next week at commencement. She'll be speaking for a brief period of time. She credits a class she took at Lane, her first year with Steve Candy. Many folks in the community know Steve. He's a well-known political science instructor who retired a couple years ago. And she credits Steve for sparking the interest in political science and kind of setting her on the path that she's taken in life. And so she's really looking forward to coming back to the college next week. And we'll be here at the reception to meet all of you who are here. But what you have in your packet this evening is a resolution similar to the ones that you've approved in the past. And if approved, we'll present Austin and President Bolger will present a framed resolution along with an award to Dr. Bittkoffer at the ceremony.
Excellent. Any questions? If not, I'll accept a motion. Lisa?
So I recommend that the board approve resolution number 695, recognizing Dr. Rachel Bittkoffer as the recipient of the 2024 Lane Community College Distinguished Alumni Achievement Award.
Excellent. Is there a second?
Second.
Excellent. Lisa, would you like to speak to your motion or?
No, I'm just very excited that we'll be hearing Dr. Bittkoffer speak at the graduation.
Absolutely. Actually, ran into her on a flight. I was reading the budget for Lane Community College and she was like, oh, I went there. And we had a wonderful conversation and I'm really happy to hear that she is going to be a distinguished alumni. So any further discussion? We'll move. Oh,
no.
Nope. Excellent. We'll move to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? Any abstention? 695 has approved. Next is the resolution for 696, the budget adoption FY 24-25.
Yes, thank you. And I'll ask Kara Flath to move through all of the resolutions also, just one after the other, if it pleases the board.
And I see Brett was sitting, so do you have a preference, sitting, standing? Okay. No, okay, I'm just checking. Don't want to. So resolution 696 and 697 are both related to the fiscal year 25 budget. They are two separate things, but interrelated. The first one, 696, is related to the budget and appropriation adoption as recommended by the Budget Committee. Move forward, no changes. It's the same thing the Budget Committee recommended, so requesting that approval. 697 is the one that authorizes the imposition of the permanent tax rate and the tax imposition for the general obligation, which is approved by the voters. So those two are included. That is a requirement to send to the county so we can actually collect taxes. Okay.
And just a quick processing, are we able to adopt those at the same time or do we have to adopt those separately? I'm not sure about the state rules around that.
You can adopt them together as long as the board motion includes both of those resolutions.
Understood.
Do you want me to go through the other two?
Yep,
The other two are, okay. The other two are related to fiscal year 2024. We're closing out the year, June. We're authorizing budget transfers. It's under the limit, but it allows us to align the budget with what the actual expenditures are. High level, it accounts for things that, like Jonathan Campbell has said, is part-time faculty. So we're spending more in that category, have outside contracts. We also are moving funds out of the contingency and the revenue reserve for revenue shortfall because we did achieve those revenues. So we're moving that funding up and other miscellaneous things to align the budget which will allow us to come in line with not violating Oregon budget laws. The second one is part of the supplemental budget hearing, which you had in your 2 sections. The college, at the time when the budget was adopted last year, did not include the TANS loan. It only comes if you adopt a TANS loan you have to pay it back in the next year. I think there was a thought that maybe because it's a short-term loan, you don't have to adopt it in the budget. You do because it crosses fiscal years. So that supplemental budget hearing, it's a large payment. It's already been issued. It was done in July of this last year. So allows us to also follow Oregon budget laws. So requesting approval of those 2.
Excellent. Lisa.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you could speak to the transfers that were made into blanking on the Fund 9, in order to begin offsetting the imbalance in that fund.
That one, if you don't mind, if I can call a lifeline to Jonathan Campbell, because he's the smart one in this particular category. I would appreciate that.
Just have to take my glasses off to see from back there. So can you rephrase your specific question?
Yeah, I'm just curious if you could speak to the transfers into Fund 9 to offset the imbalance that we have discussed rectifying over a period of time.
Yeah, we are still planning to make that transfer, and we'll calculate what the actual amount is, the deficit for this year, and then on top of what we talked about with the board over the last 5 or 6 months. We're still planning on making that transfer.
So that's not part of these transfers.
No, that would be, actually, I don't know. I'll have to get back to you. But the transfers that we're talking about are bringing budget authority out of our contingencies into the operational budget. And then from there, once we bring reserve from revenue shortfall and the contingencies into operational, then we'll make the transfer from Fund 1 into Fund 9.
Dr. Balcher?
No, it's okay. Kara?
And to add, I am going to also speculate that, so there is some internal transfers within Fund 9, but the transfer I think you're talking about between General Fund and Fund 9 was already budgeted, so it's not part of our budget balancing. It was already, I think, built into the budget to be high enough to cover that, so it hasn't been an issue, but that transfer that you're referring to actually happening will or is happening, if that helps.
Yes, thanks.
Excellent. Any further questions or discussion? I have just a brief question in regards to 697. I ask this every year. The rate per $1,000 of property value hasn't changed from last year or previous years?
No, it does not change. It's permanent tax rate, so it's what's set in Oregon statute.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Always want to double check that. All right. Any further discussion, questions?
It's not related. I can bring it up later.
Oh, yeah. Okay. We can do a motion to approve all, or we can do it one at a time.
I move that we approve resolution 696, 697, 698, and 699.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. It's been moved and approved, or moved and seconded rather. Zach, would you like to speak on your motion?
No, I appreciated the budget process, and I think that we arrived at a good place when this was approved by the budget committee. And I look forward to approving the budget and seeing it in action.
Excellent. In regards to the property taxes that we're instituting and so forth, I feel that being a property owner, paying my property taxes, it's whenever I see that line item for Lane Community College, I see it as an investment in not only in our institution, but in our community, our workforce, our educated population to participate in our democratic processes. And yeah, this is one of my favorite resolutions to pass, actually, because of that investment. So. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Any abstention? Seeing none, all 4 resolutions pass. We are moving out of action items into discussion items. Dr. Polk.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. It's my distinct pleasure to recognize Shaylin Bass for her service to the board, being a board trustee, for part of the year. And you might recall that Sawyer Smith was also a trustee for part of that year. He started our year off. And so I just want to recognize Shaylin and really give the board an opportunity to say a few words, perhaps, if you would like to, and about Shaylin and what she's contributed to the board for this year.
I will say that the best TikTok our community college has ever done was between our two presidents. So I want to absolutely compliment that and just compliment just student government, you participating in our conversations around really difficult topics, including tuition increases. Thank you for your leadership in all of this. Kevin.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for stepping up, because I always admire people who are willing to volunteer and put themselves sometimes in the hot seat. I've observed, how you created a team around you, and I respected that. So that's an unusual skill. And just the energy that you brought to the meetings with your reports, I really appreciated. And I just, when you meet someone who you think will be great, it's inspiring.
So, Zach?
Just to say that it's been a real pleasure having a student government leader on the board this year, and thank you for volunteering, and there will be big shoes to fill.
Yeah, and I will echo what everyone else has said. I have found your reports to be very articulate, as well as a great perspective on the work that the student government is doing. And I think your leadership had a big part in the effective work that was done. So thank you for stepping into a leadership role that is so critical for all of the students at LCC. It's been a pleasure to get to know.
Excellent. Denise, would you like to add anything?
Muted.
Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. What is your major?
My major? Theater.
Theater? Oh, okay. Well, I was going to say that I certainly hope that you use this experience for your future benefits, and I think your speaking opportunities. Again, I echo that, very, very articulate and very professional, and we certainly wish you well in all that you endeavor.
Thank you so much. I'm going to also use, just 2 minutes to say thank you so much to our advisor, Becca Maley. She is absolutely amazing, and I've had the pleasure of being a president underneath her management. It's been a great 2 terms. Thank you so much, Becca.
Great, thank you. So this is a photo moment, so we must stand up for this one. And this is a really nice plaque, and it's presented to Shaylin Bass for exemplary leadership and service to Lane Community College students and transforming lives through learning. And so this is
excellent.
Thanks.
All right. We expect a TikTok video later. Anyway, moving on to the strategic plan, Dr. Bulger.
Yes, we promised this report to the board, and so this is an annual report of the strategic plan. We did not do this the first year, and but we have organized ourselves around being able to do a report like this. And so we all inherited a 5-year strategic plan under the leadership really of the board and the college. Really appreciate your leadership in that and your wisdom in that particular plan. And so what we'll do now is I'll turn the time over to Shelley. Well, I will help her with this too. And so we have some slides. We're going to give you some highlights of the plan. And we have certainly also included a report, a full report in this, this agenda item as well. So the strategic plan progress report for this year, what we intend to do is to do a progress report every single year for the 5 years until we complete this particular plan. There are 6 goals. If you'll, next slide, please. Here's our timeline. We wanted to include that we've got a mid-cycle report that we will use to provide some sort of comprehensive analysis of the progress that has been made on the strategic plan. It does go until 2027, but this will be a mid-cycle report, and we're going to do that next year in 2025. We do intend to start planning the next plan in conjunction with the college community, stakeholders through the College Council, governance structure as well. And so we'll begin doing that, developing that in later in these coming years. Next slide. We have 6 goals, as you may recall. What's interesting about the plan is that the goals and the objectives really speak to diversity, equity, and inclusion. They are woven throughout the entire plan. There are about 43 or 46 objectives. There are quite a number of objectives. I think next slide. Quite a number of, if you'll go back one slide, 46 objectives. Thank you so much. So we have 6 goals and we have 46 objectives. And what's astounding to me as president of the college is that we have identified 105 activities for 2023-24. So I can assure you that we are actually living this plan. This plan is it's operational for us. And so we want to give you some highlights of what we've been able to do this year. So Shelley.
And you can go to the next slide. So this gives you an idea of the 6 goals, the number of activities that we identified for this year, and where we are with all of these. Now, in the report, which is much more detailed, this snapshot, we measured our progress in late March. So it's now June. So we'll continue to monitor this, and then we'll have an end of year, internal report, and then we'll keep you updated. So for most of, we've started or we are on task or achieved in all 6 of these areas. And so if we can go to the next slide, I'm just going to give you little highlights. So the first goal was to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion in student access and achievement. And so the big news right now is we have been identified as an emerging Hispanic serving institution. We are at 16.6% of our enrollment is Latino. And so we're moving the needle. And one of the objectives was to become an HSI. So we're getting there. Now that we're emerging, we have been invited to sit on an affinity group with HEC. So now we're going to get more resources. So that just gives you one example. And again, we're going to continue to measure what we've done this year. So that's just a highlight. Can you go to the next slide? Goal 2 is about increasing our enrollment. As you heard from Dr. Bulger tonight, our enrollment has been increasingly going up term to term. We're still not quite where we were at pre-COVID, but we're really making a lot of progress. And part of the objectives under Goal 2 was to develop new programming. And we've made a considerable amount of success on this. So we've continued our development of the Bachelor of Applied Science and Business Management. We've exceeded our enrollment in that program. And then also just this academic year, we continue to approve programs in area of workforce need. For example, tonight we just approved the Education Assistant Program. And we've already informed our faculty and dean that was approved, so thank you. Going on to Goal 3. We want to increase our student success. The big news there is that our retention is improving. For the last 2 terms, our retention rate has gone up 2% each term. This is significant. And then because retention is so highly correlated with graduation rates. So that's a huge story. There's a number of things that we're doing to improve that. So we can't quite point to what's causing it, but there's lots of good work. You've heard about the retention via relationship. This is a project that was sponsored through the Northwest Commission. Where we are, by providing faculty with up-to-date information on enrollment and the scheduling process and registration, we've seen a correlation between engagement of faculty and then also student retention rates.
On the next slide. Goal 4 is engage in continuous improvement. Some highlights there. This year, we established an inaugural academic program portfolio review process. That's new for this year. We launched an updated annual planning process, which will actually help us measure our strategic plan progress much more efficiently next year. And we launched the Presidential Artificial Intelligence Task Force. We know that AI is a disruption in higher education. So these sorts of, all of these activities help us continually meet the needs of our community. And then goal 5 is improving our financial stability. As you know, we've established a time frame to restore the ending fund balance to 10%. And there's, other things were discussed also in the report. Again, this is just a snapshot of where we were in March. And then goal 6, identify strategic infrastructure investments. We have begun a comprehensive space utilization inventory. This was per the recommendations of the Grow Save Partner work groups. Those are work groups that we're doing to improve engagement and transparency on our campus. And I believe that is our very last slide. And questions, yes. I'm like, we don't have a goal 7.
Any questions? Oh, Denise?
It's not so much a question as just a comment. I am very familiar with HSI, Hispanic Serving Institutions, and I would certainly encourage all of us as an emerging as HSI institution to be quite mindful of the need for the skill sets of bilingual counselors and instructors and programs that support in tutoring and various areas, because this is often a population of first-generation college students, as well as sometimes non-native speakers, not always, but sometimes. So I think that's going to be very important for us in order to meet that goal, to be mindful of the resources that we have in faculty, staff, counseling areas.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you.
Absolutely. On the note of HSI, so far there's 4 community colleges that are HSI institutions. That's Blue Mountain, Chemeketa, Columbia Gorge, Treasure Valley, and some commonalities amongst them is that they're looking at how they use the STEP program to help get monolingual, Spanish-speaking, and Hispanic communities into college, into training, and so forth. How to use the TUI program, training unemployment insurance, to get migrant seasonal farm workers into GED, English as a second language coursework, and so forth. So I just want to absolutely encourage. I know this work is already being done, but I just absolutely want to continue to encourage this. I want to invite the Hispanic community to be a part of our processes, our committees, and so forth. So I want to absolutely extend that invitation. I also feel like there's even opportunities for language access to even board meetings and stuff like that, to be able to have Spanish language availability of our board meetings and stuff. So there's opportunities there. And as we continue to emerge, and I feel like we are going to continue to emerge in the HSI realm, areas of opportunity in all of this. Thank you. Any further questions? Lisa?
Yeah, I'm wondering if you could talk about the comprehensive space utilization inventory and where we are at in making progress on that, and when we might see the actual finished report.
It's coming, I understand.
Yeah.
And so we'll ask Jennifer Hayward, if you wouldn't mind, to just come and give us an update on that.
And Jennifer, an update of when we might see it, but any high level things that have stood out in the process, if you're able to do that. Or if you're not, that's okay.
Yeah. We're still in the data gathering phase. It's been going a little bit slow. We're going to be working with the consultant intensively over the summer, so we don't have any high level insights yet. So, yeah, towards the end of the summer, by the fall board meeting.
We'll
Jennifer.
have that report. And so what type of data are we collecting?
All of we're having to update all of our floor plans because there are little changes. So that's one of the kind of labor intensive things. Academic plans, square footages of every room, IT in every room, stuff like that.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Look forward
Jennifer,
to
could you
seeing
speak to the comprehensive of the study? What kind of footprint are we looking at? I mean,
Oh,
campus, yeah.
It's main campus, Florence, Cottage Grove, and the Spildy Center.
Excellent. A really quick question before you go. Is there changes in like, as we see increase enrollments, is there going to be any changes? Is that like a data point or? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Enrollments, classroom usage, percent of seats filled in classes, they're looking at all of that stuff.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
And the intent of providing you with a report now, or really just an update, was to let you know what we have done thus far as of, I think, March 26th. So this is always an ongoing process, trying to get data and updates.
I'm also curious about goal 1, improving DEI and student access and achievement. And I know we are going to hear more about the college's plan in our summer retreat, but I am curious about the variables that were used to identify the progress that has been made and who has been doing that work.
Who's been
Yeah, I
monitoring
mean,
this?
we haven't really had specific staff that are assigned, and there's been an elimination of that quote unquote department. So I'm curious at how that work has been continued.
Sure. I don't know that there's much of a relationship in the way you're framing it in that way, but one of the reasons that I believe that Lane has been a little slower in identifying metrics, outcomes for these areas, for that particular area, it's certainly a concern of mine and something that I've been thinking a lot about, is because of our capacity in our institutional research area. And we have an institutional researcher who happens to be here today, but we have one person in that area. And so it's made it a bit challenging. We're going to rectify some of that with a position that you've heard about, I believe. But and it's really kind of build out that office so that we are able to have the capacity to identify the metrics and the outcomes that we want to achieve. And we can be a bit more clear with ourselves, but also with the board about where we're headed with that.
But for right now, the institutional, the planning office, what is PI, planning and institutional effectiveness, lives within academic affairs. So myself and Tammy Stark, who works in that area, and then also Kathy Thomas, have been very much involved in measuring and collecting information from the areas of the work they've been doing.
I would also suggest that perhaps we can have a presentation on the outcomes of our students so that you can see that data, the data that we do collect. We do collect the data, but what I was really suggesting is that we can be even more intentional about the outcomes that we want to achieve in some of those areas. And so, but I would welcome having us bring a presentation to the board about what the outcomes look like. These outcomes would be disaggregated. They would be about success, like graduation, for example. They would be retention numbers. They would be other kinds of data that might be instructive for the board. Really kind of baseline data, but over several years. So you can see how these groups have been what outcomes have been achieved with those particular groups over the years. You'll see that.
All right, Kevin.
Along those lines, I'm wondering if it would be valuable to include some qualitative data in that investigation. So I think the quantitative data are very important. But when we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think maybe some qualitative data would help give a better, more complete story.
I appreciate the question as well. We've done quite a lot of surveys over the last couple of years since I've been here, and there may be data, but we can certainly see what kind of data we've got and see if it speaks to some questions related to, and as we think about diversity, we're thinking about diversity in broad ways too, many different ways. And so we'll see what we've got. We'll present that to the board.
Excellent. Any further questions or comments about the strategic plan? Okay. One thing I would I apologize. One thing I would just wanted to state in regards to the summary status report and the number of activities as we go into additional reporting, the midway report and stuff. I'd love to see the changes in those activities, like maybe even just like as we continue on, are we seeing more activities in those areas? Also, I think it would just be very informational for the board to know maybe a little more detail about each activities. This could be in a separate email to the board just so that we are aware of what type of activities, just a broad summary of what they were and stuff like that. So yeah, obviously we have them in the different categories, but just like what were those activities? So
And there's a smattering of examples in the report. In the report, there's an objective, an activity, an outcome, and the activity status in the written report.
Oh, in the written, okay.
In the written report, right.
Thank
The slideshow is just a quick snapshot.
I see where you're saying there. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Lisa.
Yeah, so in the written report, though, there are 3 objectives that are focused on 1.2, 1.6, and 1.6. And so does that mean that 1.1, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 don't have examples or have not been started? I'm just wondering.
No, you want to go ahead?
Sure. This year, what I asked the team to do was to identify objectives that they were going to work on this year. And so we have 46 objectives, quite a large number.
Yeah.
And so the intention is to track the objectives and the progress on those objectives so that at the end of the 5-year plan, we can demonstrate to the board and to the college that all of the objectives have been fulfilled to the extent that we're able to fulfill them. But for this year, what I asked them to do was to select the objectives that they were going to work on this year. And they'll do the same next year. They may be similar, they may be also different, but the overall charge really is to make sure that we have addressed every single objective in the plan.
And if you will, you could just imagine there are 105 activities that were identified. If anything, we might have been a little overly ambitious. Somebody who is getting very intimately involved in trying to track all of this. So there was quite a few things that we identified. And I would say the majority of the objectives have been addressed. I do remember that Dr. Bulger told us to, be mindful of what you can actually get done in 1 year.
Yeah.
And so some of these some of the activities that we're working on or tasks are going to be transferred into next year. If we've started it, or if we need to make additional progress.
Excellent.
Could I add as well that there are teams of people and bandwidth as well. And so it's important when you're doing large scale strategic plans like this to stack them and take on so many at a time. Otherwise, I think the same people would just get overwhelmed trying to do everything in a certain time. So some don't start exactly in the first year or second year, but might start later as other ones are going through completion.
Right. Yes. And we've advised people this year to be more mindful about what they can actually accomplish in 1 year. This is This is annual planning. It's not the entire strategic plan. What can you get done in a year? What can you chunk out and make progress towards that objective?
Zach?
Are there any areas of success that you'd like to highlight or areas for further focus?
Absolutely. I mean, I think some of our successes have been, we have made progress towards being an emerging HSI. I think that's just outstanding from where we started. And it's a testament to many activities that's happening on campus.
That's right. Many outreach activities. It speaks to outreach, attracting more people. When I came in 2 years ago, I think the percentage was 14%. We're at 16.6. Emerging HSI is not a federal designation, my understanding. It is a designation about, oh, you're growing in that way. It's the fastest growing student population that we have on campus. And so the designation, the federal designation is at 25%. 25%. So we're getting there pretty rapidly. But I would say that we're incredibly proud of the work that's been going on even before I arrived for the bachelor's degree. And we are starting that this fall. And we have how many cohorts?
We have 35. We only wanted 20.
We have
35
one
students.
cohort, or
We have one cohort and we have one cohort waiting. So we're going to start, we thought we would have one cohort of 20. We have two cohorts of 35. So that's
35 total or
70.
70 total? Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's significant. That's going to help our enrollment. And also the students are voting with their feet. They want to come here. We are offering them something that's unique.
there's so many examples of things that we're proud of. The goal too, I think it's increase in enrollment. We've done that 7 straight quarters, increasing in enrollment, and it's still happening, not without effort. Certainly people are coming back to us. It's happening nationally, but there's quite a lot of effort, and we're just getting started with that kind of effort. So there are many, many things that we're incredibly proud of.
Thanks. Lisa?
Yeah, I'm curious what objectives you're targeting for next year.
Well, that's a great question. And on May 24th, everyone submitted their annual plans and we're starting to review it. So many of the tasks that we focus on this year, many of them are going to continue on, but the data has been submitted and all the area vice presidents are now reviewing that. And so that is not done yet, but that's a summer project that we'll be working on, getting our plans together for the upcoming academic year. Now, what's new this year, and this is something I'm very proud of, is the planning was done in a way that was very transparent and it was very inclusive of our staff. So our faculty were very much involved in annual planning this year. And those annual plans, what's also unique, what we're doing is that they can be viewed by everyone. So people can see what other people are working on. So we're not working in isolation.
So can I highlight one area that I would love to see us working on?
Sure.
I believe in goal 6, there is the recruit and retain a diverse, stable workforce. And I think that is critically important, similar to what Denise was saying in terms of continuing to demonstrate the growth we would like to see towards engaging with more diverse student populations. We need to recruit and retain a diverse and stable workforce. So I hope that will be something we'll be looking at. And then in terms of strategic infrastructure investments, goal number 6, there is an entire category under human. And I do think that we've heard some really great things about the faculty professional development system, but I'm not aware of what the classified staff have access to. So it's something I'm curious about. And there is also the issue of the campus climate, which we're going to hear more about in the Gallup poll. But one of the objectives is to support the work and well-being of all employees here at the college. So I think that's something I would also like to talk about more when we get to the Gallup poll as well. But, absolutely many of these areas, enrollment, as you recognize, Dr. Bulger, the completion of the bond projects, which, are a big part of our facilities plans, and the movement towards the HSI, I think are all really significant. And I appreciate the work that's been done on that.
Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, we will move on to the Gallup survey.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Well, we're pleased to present the results of the second Gallup climate survey. And I ask Shane Turner to help us with that.
I was gonna do the presentation, but let's make sure it's stable. So Brett's gonna run the slide deck for me. If you just take a second to pull that up. Just want to thank you for the opportunity to come talk to you about this, Chair Fulnegi, members of the board, and President Bulger. As you know, we completed the resurvey of campus using the Gallup climate instrument, and I'm here to share the results with you and talk over some of the high-level data points that we have come across. Next slide, please. So just to refresh your memory, if you weren't here the first time around, Gallup is a national firm that has a statistically validated survey that they call the Q12, and it measures employee engagement. And there is a statistically validated set of questions, the 12 questions that they use to measure engagement. And engagement has been positively correlated with positive business outcomes. So the more engaged an employee group is, the better things that happen for that organization. And so you can think about it in terms of bottom line. You can think about it in terms of things like turnover, but you can also think about it in terms of the outcomes that we really care about as a higher education institution. On the slide that you see before you, there is some correlated data from another Gallup client. This is not our data, but they took Gallup Q12 results and they mapped them against student outcomes within departments. And they found that there was a positive correlation between good student outcomes and highly engaged faculty. So we see that this is an effective measure of determining whether or not engagement is high among faculty, and that high engagement tends to have positive outcomes for the primary customers of our services. Next slide, please. So survey results. Attached to this item are the main reporting results, and I'll be going through a few items that stood out for us in a positive way. Next slide. First of all, one positive is that we didn't have any scores decrease, which is something that you like to see when you're doing this work. You want to know, are we headed in the right direction or not? This is sort of a weather vane kind of survey. We conducted the survey 2 years ago, and so we're wanting to make sure that the initiatives that we've undertaken, the efforts that we're making are having a positive outcome. So no scores dropped. The way that Gallup assesses movement on those scores is anything that was 0.2 or higher in movement, that's significant. So we had significant movement on the overhead kind of question, just generally, how satisfied are you with your institution as a place to work, increased 0.26. I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day, 0.21. There's somebody at work who encourages my development, 0.2. Additionally, we asked 5 other questions, supplemental questions, and 2 of those 5, we also had an increase in our scores. So concerns about ethics or integrity had an increase of 0.21. Always trust my employer to be fair to everyone, regardless of age, gender, race, an increase of 0.29. So some real positives there that I think are important to point out. Next slide, please. Other things that were really positive, we held steady on some scores that were already kind of high and were drawn out by the Gallup folks. So question 5, my supervisor or someone at work seems to care about me as a person. That score remained high. And my colleagues are committed to doing quality work. Again, we're almost at a 4 there. So, so we held that score. We also had improved participation, which in of itself sort of an indicator that people are kind of more interested in this. It reinforces that they're seeing that we're actually doing something with the results, so they want to provide their feedback. So 10% increase in participation. The other thing that's really meaningful, and it's hard to sort of put your arms around this, but when we did the survey before, we were upside down in terms of engagement. So for every 0.7 engaged employees, we had an actively disengaged employee. And that means that for every 0.7 employees who were engaged, we had one person who was pulling equally hard in the opposite direction. And so it's really hard to get traction. We see that has flipped slightly. So now we're at 1.17 employees engaged for every 1 disengaged employee. You can also see that in the engagement index, we've got about 50% that are not engaged. Remember, the analogy that I used when we talked about this before is imagine everyone in the boat and everyone's got an oar, and the ones that are engaged are rowing in the same direction that we want to go. The ones that are disengaged are rowing in the opposite direction, and the ones that are not engaged don't have their oar in the water. And so if we can get those folks with their oar in the water and pulling in the right direction, it's going to have a huge impact. And so there's a huge opportunity that's still there that you're going to see in some of the things that we have to work on as well. So if we could go to the next slide. Areas for continued work. If you go to the next slide, please. So some of our scores were essentially flat. I mentioned that Gallup recognizes 0.2 increase as significant. These questions are staying flat. So question 1, I know what's expected of me at work. I have the right materials and equipment. I need to do my work right. In the last 7 days, I had somebody tell me I did a good job, and I have a best friend at work. As you heard in the public comment, percentile scores are low and kind of across the board. So lots of room for improvement. One of the things that's important to note that I'll talk about a little later is they're not low in every department. And so we've got some real bright spots that we're going to focus on. Next slide, please. So this starts to look at ways that the different employee groups are seeing things differently. There were significant increases on some questions for some employment groups, whereas for others, that same question was flat or even went down. And so there's a lot of work to unpacking the data and trying to understand it and understand what's going to move the needle for each of the employment groups. We have a lot of opportunities to disaggregate this data, and so we'll be working on doing that over the summer and in building plans for the fall. But you can see that there are meaningful improvements for each employee group. It just happens to be in different areas sometimes, and that gets a little tricky to prescribe what is moving the needle for each. So part of it is diagnosing that. Next slide, please. So specific initiatives. One of the core initiatives that you undertake as a part of the Gallup process is departmental action planning, where each department manager has an opportunity to download their report if they have at least 4 direct reports who completed the survey, and work through that report with their direct reports and say, this is what the report says is important to you. What would a 5 look like? Like, how can we get to a 5? And so we've already done that orientation. That happened like 2 weeks after the survey was closed. We're going to be planning training during summer as a part of a manager's retreat that will take some of those bright spot folks and bring them forward to say, this is what we did and how it worked for us. And what I think is really encouraging about those bright spots, and when I say bright spot, I mean that managers who had a percentile score of 50 or higher. So you heard about some that had you heard about in the general results, this is a percentile score of 8. We had one that had a percentile score of 87 across. And so there are bright spots, and we're going to focus on those, and we're going to have them tell their story and explain how they did that, because it's repeatable. Gallup's process is repeatable. They do it over and over and over again. Some of those bright spots are faculty leaders. They're faculty leaders in smaller departments. And so when we talk about some of our campus-wide efforts, specifically, I'll jump down to the strategic staffing decisions to address issues surfaced in the reports. One of the things that we're doing is we're splitting apart some of those super divisions, and we're hiring dean, like a dean of humanities, a dean of math. And part of what that's going to do is make it easier for a manager to be able to say, hey, you're doing a great job. It's hard for a manager of 125 people to do that within the last 7 days for all their people. And so those are the kinds of things that we're doing. You'll remember from my previous presentation that we had campus climate work groups that put forward recommendations, and we started to work on some of those recommendations, and the work on those is in some cases still ongoing. So we're going to continue to push that work forward. We're going to continue to do some of the belonging efforts that were initiated under Dr. Bulger's leadership. The classified employee recognition event that some of you attended last year. We're going to do that again this summer. We've got the IT chili cook-off. The different divisions have been doing different things to try to build community and a sense of belonging for folks. We heard mention about the DE office earlier, and Dr. Bulger has been soliciting feedback from campus on what they want to see in that office. One of the interesting disconnects is that office really didn't have anything to do with curriculum or with student outcomes. And so part of what we're trying to envision in a new office is something that would have a closer tie to instruction and be able to have some meaningful impact on those outcomes that we're measuring. Dr. Bulger hosting annual luncheons with faculty and staff of color. And then again, looking at those results on the last slide, you can understand it's going to take a nuanced approach for each of the employee groups. And as we start to segment the groups more finely across some of those other demographics or other things, we may come up with other initiatives that are targeted for specific populations. One of the things we had trouble with last time was getting participation from our part-time employees. And so again, I could envision something specific for them, and we're still digging into the data. I think my next slide is a thank you slide. So I want to say thank you to Brett and his folks for providing the photo archive. All the photos in the slide deck were from his work and are of campus. So with that, I'm open for any questions you have.
All right, Kevin.
First of all, thank you for your presentation. I feel like I have a good overview. I appreciated the openness and the honesty. And just as a side note, your PowerPoint slides rock. Yeah, it's always important. So I have a question about a term that you use. So 5 is perfect. The numbers, they're not percentages, they're actual numerical values, right?
So it's a Likert scale. It's 1 to 5, and so those numbers that you're seeing there, the scores are actually an average of the Likert score.
Okay, and then you use the term significant. Is that used in a statistically significant way, or is that a clinical, meaningful way?
Gallup didn't say when they said 0.2 is significant. So I'm not sure. That's just the way that they describe it. When I talked about correlation, that is statistically significant. Zach?
Can we go to the room for improvement slide?
While Brett's pulling that up. Any quick questions, just in case? Okay. There we go. And now, I'm sorry, Brett.
So it looks like the areas of the largest improvements were in management. And can you just talk a little bit more about opportunities to focus on improving these outcomes for classified and faculty staff. I'm very hopeful that as we increase enrollment and get our budget in a better situation, we can spend more time really helping these folks feel
Yeah, absolutely. Those numbers kind of jump out at you, right? So part of what I try to do when looking at these results is put those things in context. So remember what we were doing sort of just prior to the survey administration with the classified. We had just finished 11 months of bargaining. We'd gone through mediation twice, and it was pretty hard fought. And so you heard testimony during those negotiations that the classified weren't feeling appreciated. I think part of the challenge is that it's gonna, they hadn't gotten the retro checks yet, right? That those kinds of things are meaningful and I think will sink in. Another thing that's important that you heard Jonathan talk about during the budget hearings is the planned increases in M&S budget, right? So one of the things that was sort of flat and low scores was around having the resources I need to do my job. And so we're going to see staffing sort of ramp up. Remember, there are a bunch of held positions that are now in this new budget and are approved to be filled. That has a bottom line impact on our classified employees being able to do their jobs and not feel like I'm doing 3 or 4 people's jobs. So I feel like that's going to smooth out a little bit. Obviously, again, we're going to continue to do the things that we think are important, like the Classified Appreciation Day this summer. And continue to work on it. Those are just a couple of things that come to mind right now. You heard about the ULP for faculty. Obviously, in the fall, we were having potential layoffs. That's disruptive, right? And so again, as enrollment growth continues, you've heard about hiring additional part-time faculty to fill classes. There's a real momentum shift that kind of happens when an organization starts to be healthy. And I've talked about this before when I came and talked to you about the Lean Forward Fund. That's the kind of thing that an organization does to send signals to its staff that we're healthy and we're going in the right direction. You heard Jen and Sarah talk about getting an award from the Lean Forward Fund. You let your racehorses run. And part of that is going to be highlighting those and putting more towards it so we can fund more of the kinds of initiatives that our faculty and classified minds are coming up with. Yeah. Zach?
Have you identified particular areas targeting, particular questions where we're low scoring, or are there areas that you identified for prioritization in terms of improving scores in some certain areas?
We're still digesting the data, and yeah, I've got a request sent in my email inbox on some disaggregated data, and so still pulling that down and trying to understand it, because you can look at it through one lens and it looks one way, and look at it through another lens with a different data slice, and it's like, oh, well, maybe it's not quite that. So we're still refining, I guess, where we're going to get the most impact by targeting. And so that's what I would say now. I mentioned in the slides, I have plans to come back to you and report back. And so I'm glad to do that at a shorter interval if that's important for you, so that you know the progress we're making.
Yeah, I just wonder if we identify specific areas as priorities for improvement for like the next year to focus on, that maybe there'll be some as we get to them year by year, eventually we'll get to all of them. But I wonder if it would make sense to say, we're going to really focus on this thing.
Yeah, I think it's going to be different for, like you say, for different groups, some of it's lower hanging fruit too. And it's getting consistent application across the board. So in one of the slides, I talk about requesting all of those action plans from people so that we can review them and we can work through them to make sure that everybody's doing the work, right? We didn't just talk about it and then maybe put it on a shelf for a while. We want to make sure that the work is carrying through, and my cabinet colleagues are going to help me make sure that happens. Lisa.
Yeah, so this slide just makes my brain hurt, honestly. And it it feels really overwhelming for me to say, okay, I can get a clear picture of what is really happening here at the college. And I think it's because what we're looking at is we're looking at all these Likert scales, right? And so I'm curious about the percentiles. If we could have those made available. But then I guess when I love your boat analogy. That really helps me frame it. But when I look at the percentages, I'm glad to see that we went from 22 to 27% engaged, but we still have 73% of our employees that are not engaged, right? And I'm looking at a combined amount of not engaged and actively disengaged, right? So
Can you go back a slide?
yeah, and so I guess I would be curious to know, like,
It's, yeah, forward.
it's page 5,
Thank
right?
you, Lisa.
I'd be really curious to know, like, what does that mean for a community college to have 73% of its employees not engaged, right? And I understand the distinction between the two, right? And we didn't change at all in the not engaged category. And how do we compare to other institutions?
Yeah, so one of the things that the Gallup folks told us is that you don't often have people who go from actively disengaged to actively engaged. It's usually a transition process. So probably what happened is we had some of the folks go from actively disengaged to not engaged, and some of the not engaged folks go to engaged. That's usually the transition that happens. So the story that you're looking for is told in the percentiles.
Right.
Honestly, it's that that's what it looks like. It looks like that you have the percentile scores we have. The good news is that we also know what better looks like. We have some departments. We have a department where they're at the 87th percentile, and so we have some managers who got 5s, and like you looked at that slide that gave you a headache, and there weren't any 5s there, and so that's amazing, and so it's making incremental progress to get more people voting 5. I'm not sure if I'm fully answering your question. So if I could just have you rephrase it or repeat it.
I think it's really helpful to understand that it's an incremental approach, and I would expect that,
Yeah.
right? But I still find it concerning that an institution would have 73% of its employees falling in those not engaged, actively disengaged categories. And so especially when we know the correlation that exists between stronger outcomes for our students, right?
For sure.
And so I'm curious, like, what type of information we have about comparisons to other community colleges. Like, how do we think about within the context of how do we think about this data in a broader context, right?
Yeah. So we have looked at percentile scores in higher ed. We tend to look better in as compared against higher ed than we do against sort of the universe of their data. It's just that said, I mean, we still don't look great yet. And so one of the ways to think about it, I think, Lisa, is when you look at the 75% or 73% that are not actively engaged, the 50%, what we're trying to do is if they become engaged, then they're willing to give their discretionary energy to our outcomes. So not engaged are the people that come and they punch the clock and they go home, and they're not going to, they're not going to stay and help that student, or they're not going to answer that last email. And, there's work-life balance and all those things. But I'm telling, like, what it looks like is they're willing to go the extra mile. And that's the difference. We've got 25% of our employees that are doing that. We want to get more. And the work that we're doing is designed to get more.
So can you share the percentile data with us?
For sure. Yeah. So the percentile scores are in the report. But if you're asking, can I get the percentile scores for the breakdowns of employee groups? I'm not sure which, because again, you can slice it a lot of different ways. So if you can tell me which percentile scores you're looking for, we're glad to give you whatever data we've got.
Okay, if possible, Dr. Bolger, maybe I could schedule some time to follow up about the math of all this, I will admit to. But, we heard in public testimony that, we're looking at a 5th percentile score about if I raise a concern, it'll be addressed. So to me, that says, that 95 or more people out of 100 don't feel like their concerns are being addressed. That trusting the institution to be fair was in the 6th percentile. So I'm interested in seeing those percentile scores because I think my brain can.
Yeah. So what it means is 95% of the organizations in the database scored higher than us.
Okay, so that's what we're looking at, right? So that's what I mean by the context and the comparison, right? So 95% of the organizations scored higher than us.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not a specific score as aligned to our individuals.
That's right. That's comparing us against the universe of people or of organizations that are at any point in their Gallup journey. So they maybe been doing this work for 20 years, or maybe they're just in their second survey, just like us.
Yeah. Denise, and then we'll go to Zach. Denise, go ahead.
Thank you. I think this is where it becomes really important to get some of the responses that are not in the format of a survey. So, for example, getting people to respond to what does engagement at LCC look like to you? So what would it mean to move, right, from not engaged, okay, to slightly engaged or engaged? Because there's such a wide variety of what that would mean. And we're not collecting real-time information about what that means to the people in our work environment. I would like to see that being, done. It could be voluntary or whatever, that just says what it's a pretty non-threatening question, what does engagement in LCC or at LCC look like, sound like to you?
Yeah,
and let people narrate and see what comes up.
That's exactly the purpose of the departmental action planning process. That's the conversation. That's the question that managers are supposed to be asking their employees, and building an action plan around what they want to see. So I'm glad to provide an overview of those action plans when they come in the fall. If it'd be helpful for you to be able to see, these are the kinds of things that they're working on at the departmental level to address the employees' answers to that very question.
Excellent. Zach.
We could go back to the slide Lisa was looking at a moment ago. No, the other one on the engaged, disengaged. I think my question is, I'd like to have a sense of, for both this question and maybe on some other questions, of how we compare to like peer institutions. And so if we're able to pull out this data set for, community colleges or higher education more broadly, or to come up with some number of institutions that we're going to identify as our peers that we can track ourselves against, and, potentially set some targets for, reaching the average or some higher number for some of these target areas?
Yeah. So in terms of the data that we have access to, obviously not every institution uses this survey. We are able to benchmark against higher ed. And so in terms of percentile scores, I'm glad to request those from Gallup. Are you asking, Zach, for a higher ed benchmark for this graph, or this the number of engaged employees against disengaged employees? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, for this question or some other questions, I think it would be interesting to see that as well. Higher education more broadly, if we can zoom into community colleges more specifically, or even a subset of community colleges that we want to think are equivalent, that we should be, that we're similar size, or some other comparator that makes sense for them to be used as a comparison tool.
Okay.
That'd be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Overall, Denise, did you have your hand up still?
So
go ahead.
I just want to follow up on this comparative idea. There are too many significant differences between higher ed, university, and community college. Okay, way too many. And often community colleges use, for numerous reasons, I've come to learn it as a market basket comparative group. So based on your FTE numbers and population, you put together who is likely to be your comparative community college group, so that when these kinds of questions come up, it's often used for salaries or other kinds of things, that we are truly looking at what is a more genuine comparison. And I would argue that looking at universities and higher ed is not that.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, I think that you can definitely have differences in the scores. At the end of the day, engagement is engagement, and it has an impact on business outcomes. And so regardless of who we compare ourselves against, we're also comparing ourselves against ourselves. And so that's part of what I try to latch on to see where are we getting better, where are we getting worse, and how can we continue to improve. So that will continue to be the focus, but I'm absolutely glad to dig into whatever comparators are available. I don't know if we'll have the opportunity to say, give us everyone who has enrollment over 15,000 and, a budget over 300 million, or I don't know that there's that universe that we'll be able to choose from, but I'm glad to engage in the conversation and give you what as close as we can get to what you're asking.
Lisa?
I'll just make one more short comment. I appreciate the focus on being solution oriented. And I think that is the positive, correct direction to go. So in terms of having an update on the action plans, I think that would be very welcome.
Great. Absolutely. Thank you.
I'll just briefly just state, when my agency that I work for went through this process, I remember these slides. I remember these graphs, and I remember being a union leader and looking at it. And the best way that someone described it to me, it was like puzzle pieces that you threw out on the table, and you don't exactly know what it looks like yet, but then eventually you're working on the puzzle, and eventually you're starting to go, oh, okay, it's a Japanese hazel. We'll put this together and so forth. So, and it was really fascinating over the last 3 years seeing that evolve and so forth, and like different work groups being created, different solutions happening, and the work's still happening. I mean, just look at the news at our agency, and you'll see that there's still more work to be done within our agency. So, I am really hopeful of this. There is areas of opportunity. And I think that there, consistent feedback on this and consistent reporting, as well as the public comments, kind of help us understand a lot of the nature and the culture of what people are working in. I really appreciate your leadership on this, and I've seen you do your outreach. You're working with our classified staff and our faculty and our cabinet and management and so forth. So thank you for your leadership in this. Thank you. Zach.
I'll just add, I very much appreciate the positive direction that these numbers are moving, and I look forward to building on that progress in future years. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Absolutely. Thank you, Shane. All right. We're a little over on some of these topics, but that's okay. We will make up for it a little bit here. Discussion item in regards to the Black Pioneer Monument recognition. So President Bulger and I and Lisa, we've had some conversations around this, and we haven't developed quite a draft board resolution or a letter as of yet. We did take the board's feedback in regards to what are other ways that we can participate in the recognition and there's a support in the Black Pioneer Monument. And I'm actually really curious of how we can even just kind of expand who to include in what we can do as far as support for this. I would love to hear, for instance, from the Black Student Union, for instance, and seeing ways that we can have them participate in this. Yeah. So anyway, and also we heard from leaders in the community about this monument, and we're considering those aspects. So I just wanted to just briefly report back on that, and that I hope with continued conversation and work with the president and Lisa that we can bring something back to the board within the near future. President Bulger, is there anything you wanted to add on that?
I think that Trustee Diamond wanted to jump in.
Denise, go ahead.
Well, what I remember, and again, maybe people remember it differently, but I remember when this was first brought up and we got some specific information of the various community agencies, leaders, and organizations that were a part of this, that there was a lot of support on the board for participating in this as an educational institution. And I certainly would like to see us go forward in that direction. If I'm not mistaken, and you all have more experience than I do, I think the board has a budget and can make decisions on that. And there are other budget pockets in at LCC. So it seems to me that we can certainly we can move forward in addition to the educational lecturing or components of this. We can move forward in a financial way and get a start so that we're represented and we show our support. And that's how I remember the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Zach.
Yeah, I'm also supportive of financially supporting the project. Interested in ways that we can add additional education components to that. What is the timeline? Is there a timeline that they need potential financial support by that they're looking at?
Yeah, so based off of their presentation, there was obviously the July 21st event that they are at least releasing the preliminary what the statue was going to look like and so forth. They did not say that we necessarily need to get funding before that time period. So it's more just like having the letter of support and so forth. That is the most urgent aspect. And then they're obviously going through a fundraising prospect right now. So yeah, Kevin.
Yeah, I think there are issues of due diligence. And so I appreciate the care and the attention to the process that I think is very important. A question in my mind, which may not be a valid question, but I don't even know if the LCC can use public dollars to donate to a 501c3. I don't know if that's possible or not. I remain supportive of the project, and I appreciate the making a good decision.
Absolutely. Lisa.
Yeah, so my understanding is that the college has contributed to community projects in the past that have been very similar. And I think a good example of that is the memorial outside of the Holt Center for the Japanese internment camps. And I don't have specific information about that, but that there are examples of the college committing financially to support these projects. And there are other institutions that are committing public dollars to this project, which is a 501(c)(3). So I certainly think that's an important question to answer, but I think we have some examples to suggest that it's likely possible. I am also supportive of us supporting it financially. I don't know if we could support it financially to the extent that they would like for us to support it, but I do agree with Denise that I think we have the potential for some money coming out of our budget, and Austin and I have taken a look at that and think it could be possible. There may be other places within the institution, but I think that I am also supportive of contributing financially and I personally would like to see us move forward as quickly as possible with the resolution and the letter so that we can participate as a supporting institution at the in the event that will be happening in commemoration of the removal of the Across the River community.
Excellent. And we do have a board meeting, obviously, on July 3rd, and we could be able to vote on a resolution if the board has that appetite. Second.
I hopefully there's opportunities for speakers and all of these things that can come later. How and when would you like to have the discussion about an amount, or would that come on in July on the 3rd?
Well,
so I believe 25,000 was the ask for the diamond level sponsorship. Are there levels below that we want to consider? And at what meeting would you like to have that conversation if we need to have that conversation?
Yeah. Well, I've received some good feedback in this, and Lisa and I can continue to have conversations with the president about this. Absolutely, that can be discussed obviously in our next June 18th meeting as well as an optional discussion item if the whole board would like to participate in that as well. So yeah, I'm open to that idea as well as further conversations to kind of refine the ask in the resolution. So, yeah.
So, kind of building on Zach's question, would it be possible to have a letter from the chair and a draft resolution from the board by our work session so that we could have some conversations and then hopefully make a decision by the first board meeting in July so that we would or even come to some clear thinking at our work session so that we can begin to communicate to the group where we're headed.
Absolutely. I'm dedicated to that. Dr. Balger?
We can certainly draft a letter for the board, and I think the president should be added to that.
I agree. Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
And the resolution and having a resolution?
We can draft a resolution as well.
Okay.
Excellent. All right. There is some feedback though I heard in this that it will definitely help with the resolution. So thank you for that. All right. Moving on to our last topic, or sorry, our last two topics in regards to the academic affairs update and the student affairs update.
Yes, and Dr. Tinkham and Dr. Joyce.
Well, I have a short update this evening. I trust that you all received my report, so I'm just going to highlight a few things. It's a very busy time of the year as we celebrate our student achievements. We're very much focused on commencement which is next Saturday. It really consumes almost everything that we're doing right now, and faculty are getting ready and they're grading, and so it's a very it's busy and it's stressful, but it's also a lot of fun. I am delighted to share that Professor Eric Kem has been chosen by a panel of students and faculty, and he will be our faculty commencement speaker this year. Looking forward to next year. We are delighted to share that Flower Darby, she's the Associate Director of the Teaching for Learning Center at the University of Missouri. She authored the Norton Guide to Equity-Minded Teaching and Small Teaching Online. She's going to be providing our faculty in-service keynote address on September 19th. Our faculty are very excited about this. Flower Darby is one of 3 faculty authors who published the Norton Guide to Equity-Minded Teaching. So we're absolutely delighted that we were able to secure her participation this year. We are also really taking a look at our rural campuses. And I'm delighted to share that we are scheduling 6 courses, in-person courses at Florence for fall. The Cottage Grove Center should also be we've received information that we will be able to get back in that space in fall. So we'll be in the, on the ground and back in Cottage Grove. We are also working on a Common Read program. A Common Read program is in my opinion, is one of the best things a community college can do. It's one book, it's one experience, everybody comes together. It's the way that we build culture, it's the way that we build relationships and trust. Both myself and a group of faculty in the library, we kind of coalesced on this idea. We've got funding through the Lane Forward Fund, and we are meeting right now to finalize the book. We're going to share the name of that book at fall in service. So we're not going to tell you this year. You're going to have to wait. But I have a lot of reading to do over the weekend, and it's an absolute delight to engage in that. It's what we do in academic affairs. And what I've learned from the committee is like, oh, it's been so much fun just to sit and read a book. And we've got about 20 of them that we all have to read through right now. So, and we also, we're asking for recommendations for the books from our community. So this is something that, for me, it's really important that this is something that is incredibly inclusive. When I say community, it's all of us. It's managers, it's faculty, it's students, and it's our classified staff coming together around one book and one common experience. Hopefully we will get the author here as well next year. And that is my report.
Excellent. Any questions? Denise.
Well, thank you. Just muchísimas gracias. Wow. Just to get such a good report about opportunities in Florence for face-to-face. I'm so excited to hear that. And I know people in the community will be as well. And I certainly hope we get the word out so that this will be a delight to think about and to plan for, and families can plan for that and students can plan for that. That sounds absolutely wonderful. And I can't wait to hear what the title of the book is. I just can't wait. Thank you.
Excellent. Oh, Zach.
Can you repeat what you said about Cottage Grove?
Yes,
And the
so
location?
that construction should be finished, and I have been told that we can get back into the building in the fall.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent. All right, we will move on to the next report.
Right, thank you, everyone. I wanted to start off this last, I'd say, 6 weeks has been, we've had a slew of student events on campus from all corners. And I would also like to mention that we talk about the strategic plan and we talk about kind of the goal number one and kind of diversity, equity, inclusion. So many of the events that we've held on campus have that as being a focus. And I wanted to just mention that. And also Becca Maley and Carl Yeh have been involved in practically all of these events and have been every part of campus day and night and done a wonderful job. I'll start with athletics. The Lane men's and women's track and field teams, they swept the team titles at the Southern Region Championships at Mount Hill Community College in May. And then the NWAC Track and Field Championship was the final meet of the season. The women's team placed second. However, we also, Sarah McKen was named the Outstanding Female Athlete of the meet. And then the men track and field won their 10th consecutive NWAC team title. And Elijah Dominique was named the Male Athlete of the Year. The Lane baseball team completed the season 4th place in the Southern region. And again, that's a team that's on the road the whole time. So they did brilliant practice. Those kind of things are difficult. And they qualified for the NWAC Super Regional Baseball Tournament. So they got in the playoffs and they were knocked out eventually by Blue Mountain Community College. But they did great. Gender Equity Center, there was a drag queen story hour with Queens Electra Star and Natasha Glam. That was a great event, and it was funny, it was touching, it was beautiful, it was a great event, and the Multicultural Center was full. Gender Equity Center was full. We had Dana Veractivist Johnson on campus, presented a sexual orientation, gender, and expression workshop. Native American Student Association held a necklace workshop. Student government elections were so great to attend. It was basically a panel, there were questions, and just hearing the conversations, the experiences of the students of all ages, cultures, it was just great. And I'm excited for the new group, as Shaylin was saying. And then our Jim Garcia went with our METCHA student group to Hamlin Middle School in Springfield and held an inaugural Latino Student Union Summit. And that involved traditional dress, music, and it was a very inspiring event. Spring Festival was already talked about, but that was a lot of fun. There was so much energy on campus. There was music, there was DJ, there was bull riding. All kinds of things. We had a job fair, which was really well organized. We had 42 employers and close to 200 job seekers attended the event. I'm also skipping over, there's so many events, I'm just kind of giving you an idea of some of them. We had the Shabbat College President, Jamal Cooks, come and speak at the Multicultural Center on centering student success in the artificial intelligence era. And we were lucky enough to meet him for breakfast and have a kind of fascinating conversation. I wanted to also mention our financial aid department has brought in all of the 2024-25 FAFSA records and has uploaded them. And now they're working on getting financial aid offers out to these students. They've done a lot of work this week and they're continuing. Then the international programs had an international night with music, dance, all kinds of things. It was one of the best nights I've had here on campus. And Will Velez also sung kind of a traditional song and dance. And it was absolutely hilarious to watch. Well, hilarious probably isn't the right word, but great to watch. We had 3 different high schools visit our campus, and we helped them register, apply, do all those things: Creswell, Willamette, and Cottage Grove. And we've actually had more since this report. And then we had a touching and beautiful Memorial Day observance ceremony outside the Longhouse in the garden. Maxwell Students Veterans Center Director Al Azel, and veteran, he gave like a very powerful, I would say, presentation. He named the 14 servicemen that died with him in his many tours. And we had native drummers and singers, and it was a very powerful ceremony. There wasn't a dry eye. We've got many more events coming up. If you look at our report, you will see some of the student affairs events coming up in the next few weeks if you have the time to attend.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay.
I noticed your photos and I love them.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to give credit to Carl, Becca, and Laura, and other people. We're trying to really put more photos and kind of so you get an idea of what's really happening in there. Thank you. Thanks for
Excellent.
checking it out.
Excellent. Kevin likes photos and good PowerPoints.
Good PowerPoint,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is good. Great feedback, Eric.
Visual learning.
Exactly. All right. Any further questions or comments? All right, we'll move on to the LCCA, LCCEF reports.
Good evening, members of the board and President Bulger. May was filled with both challenges and wonderful highlights for LCCEA. You've heard a little bit about the unfair labor practice hearing that took place. 7 faculty members were called to testify at the hearing regarding the unfair labor practice complaints filed by LCCEA in response to administration actions. This was very hard on our members, as many had to relive the trauma that they had already experienced. It will be several months before a decision is released. Hopefully that will be sometime without too much further delay. Despite this, the unfair labor practices and the retaliation that some of our union leaders and members have experienced, our LCCEA leaders have renewed our commitment to continue to stand together and remain steadfast and unwavering in our advocacy for collaborative labor relations, principled decision-making, ethics, integrity, diversity, equity, and justice for our members, our students, our campus, and our community. One of the specific requests we've made is to work together with the administration on joint trainings for managers about our contract. We've asked for this collaboration at nearly every monthly Labor Management Committee meeting that we've had since March of 2023. And we look forward to a time when the administration agrees to renew this collaborative effort. We'll continue to advocate for this best practice because we believe it's the right thing to do and that it's an essential component for more productive labor relations. In the meantime, LCCEA leaders and affected faculty have received a heartwarming outpouring of support from faculty at large who've taken the time to share their appreciation during this especially busy time as we're wrapping up the end of the term, meeting student needs before finals week. I want to shift to share some visuals, which I'm sorry, I don't know how they'll be visible for people who are on Zoom, but what I'm showing is the cover of the collective bargaining agreement, has a lot of photos on there. And what I wanted to highlight is a few things because I think it's actually, just as I look at this, even though, you might know I have multiple copies and I carry them around with me. And so everyone knows I will have at least one copy in my bag at all times. And I even take them on vacation wherever I go. That there's a lot of information just right here on this cover that really corresponds to both the challenges and the highlights. So one of the first things I wanted to mention is that in the very large print down here at the bottom, you might notice that this is a collective bargaining agreement between the Lane Community College Board of Education and the Lane Community College Education Association. So one of the reasons I wanted to mention that is because I think it's really important to remember your role as board members, not only in and the board members before you who had a role in ultimately having this mutually agreed collective bargaining agreement, but also your role in providing leadership for how labor relations happens at our campus. In addition, we have these lovely photos, and from a distance, it might just look like a lot of people wearing a lot of red t-shirts. Maybe these are a bunch of union events, but what I want to share is there's a little bit more to what's happening here in these photos. So we have, on the first photo, we've got 2 faculty members and 1 classified professional, which I think really highlights the collaboration that we have with our amazing and wonderful classified professionals. And we also have 2 of our faculty of color, 1 who was targeted for retrenchment this past fall, and another who resigned after just a few years at LCC, Lori Tapahanso, who was the Native American Student Program Coordinator, who is also instrumental in the formation of our LCCEA Racial Equity and Social Justice Committee. So we will carry her legacy forward as we continue to advocate for justice on our campus. And some of the other things that I wanted to highlight here are these 2 bottom photos were taken in Salem, where there was a very large rally entirely focused on increasing funding for education. And we attended this rally, faculty members together with administrators. There's an administrator here wearing one of the red OEA t-shirts, holding a sign about how community colleges are essential. We, Rosie Pryor, who is one of the former board members, she was there wearing a red OEA t-shirt. We spent the morning at this rally, and we spent the afternoon going to meet with legislators together in a group that included students, faculty, board members, and administrators. That's how we did it. That is something that can give us hope for what we can do, what is possible here at Lane Community College. So I really want to highlight that because we don't have a lot of time to waste to get things together and have a better, more collaborative relationship going on this campus. We are coming up to the legislative session, the long session next year. We are going to need all hands on deck, working together in sync, striving for substantial increases to the CCSF. So we're going to be doing it, and we hope we're going to be doing it together with you all, board members, administration, students, classified alike. On a final note, we did have some fun this past month. About 140 faculty and family members went out to LCCEA night at the M's baseball game, and it was really a great time. And some of our membership committee members, Kevin, Wendy, and others, arranged for a faculty union president, who you might know, to throw out the first pitch, which I was very nervous about, but did make it over home plate. So thanks, and thank you very much for all your attention.
Excellent. Thank you. Is Frankie online? All right, go ahead, Frankie.
Hello, good to see all of you guys this evening. Go ahead and start off. Last month, I shared insights into the origins of May Day and shed the light on the significant challenges our classified employees face with their workloads. This issue strikes a personal chord with me, and I'm committed to seeing it through until we find a fair solution that alleviates the physical and mental strain on our classified professionals. Basically, the strain that they endure. I urge the board to prioritize this matter with the cabinet. As our college's enrollment grows, so does the workload of our classified staff. They deserve the support necessary to deliver the top-notch experience our students expect. Without sufficient assistance, completing tasks accurately and efficiently becomes an insurmountable challenge for them. The burden of excessive workload can take a toll on the physical health of our classified employees, leading to conditions like chronic stress, autoimmune disorders, and hypertension. Working under constant pressure can elevate stress levels, increasing the risk of heart disease and stroke. The prolonged stress can lead to serious long-term health complications, undermining their well-being. Additionally, the mental health of our classified employees is profoundly affected by the overwhelming workload, often resulting in anxiety and depression. Persistent worry and difficulty concentrating are common symptoms of chronic anxiety, while the pressure to perform can lead to feelings of hopelessness and burnout, contributing to depression. It is crucial for the board to urge the cabinet to address this issue by reopening closed positions and filling vacant ones before the fall term begins. With enrollment on the rise, the workload of our employees will only increase, exacerbating their health issues. By redistributing the workload more evenly, we can mitigate the stress of health problems like hypertension, autoimmune disorders, and mental health conditions like anxiety and depression. Ensuring that our classified employees are supported and not overwhelmed will enable them to fulfill their duties effectively, ultimately enhancing the overall student experience. Taking prompt action is vital to fostering the sustainable and healthy work environment, creating a more effective and positive atmosphere for everyone at the college. Your support in this endeavor can make a real difference in the lives of our dedicated staff members. And also tonight, we heard presentations that LCC has increased student enrollment over the past 7 terms. LCCEF would like to see a report on the increase of hiring over the same period of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on to informational reports. Any comments or questions in regards to the information reports? One thing I had was actually in regards to the foundation report. First off, I hope that we can all attend the President's Circle, which is going to be on June 12th. But I also wanted to just simply, I would love to find out more about the alumni network. If I know it's been a while since we've talked about it, but a report back on that at some point might be beneficial to the board in the near future. I'd love to see how we're continuing to build our network, building supportive services. I know there's a lot of different objectives they had during that time period, so I would be kind of curious to see if we can get some additional reports on that. All right, any other further questions in regards to the information reports? Nope, excellent. All right, more board member question. Oh, sorry.
It's on the next part.
Oh, okay, perfect. Board member questions and comments. Zach and then Kevin.
Yeah, I just want to thank board member Mike Eister for his time on the board, and wanted to just ask if someone could give an update for members of the public of what the process to appoint a new board member will be.
Absolutely, yeah. So we have, give me 1 second here. Let me pull up the info. All right, so yeah, I completely agree. We want to absolutely thank Mike Eister and his service. And as a board chair, I've accepted his resignation effective giving of the letter. And that's going to be part of the questions that I have for you as a board. In my part of the board comments and question is in the agenda, you see the application questions, as well as an idea of different timeframes that we can go with. So the main thing is that we need to have applicants come from that district. They have to submit an application as well as a resume. And we were kind of wanting to ask the board if we should include a cover letter, things like that. The main questions we're asking is around community involvement, education, and narrative, pretty much a brief statement of your interest in serving on the Lane Community College Board. So essentially that is the process for an individual to do that. We had a discussion of either doing an application process, meaning the application for the position is open for 30 days, or we can pursue it throughout the summer because we're going into the summer months and gives additional time for additional applicants and so forth. And yeah, so those are kind of the main things that I would love to hear from the board and get some feedback on that. Lisa, did you want to add anything to that application process?
No, I think it's sufficient to talk about the application process now, and but I think possibly in the work session, we may want, once we get the application process rolling, we may want to discuss what to do in terms of the process for interviewing and the selection process. But I think at this point, the main focus should be on the application process.
Absolutely. So yeah, yeah, if there's any additional questions you would want to ask in the application, any feedback on that would be great. So, Denise.
Thank you. I just need to clarify, Our work session is on a Tuesday? Because
Yeah,
June.
Juneteenth.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to be sure I got that right. Thank you.
Absolutely. Once again, we'll cover that in the future meeting dates, but Kevin.
Thank you. I have four things. First, I want to thank Mike Eister for his service on the board and specifically for his mentorship for me as a new board member coming on the board and onboarding. And Mike was just really gracious. And I know Mike's probably sitting home right now watching this live feed. I'm sure he is. So thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Yeah. Secondly, congratulations to Austin, who was recently elected the OCCA board president position. So good job.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. These they have nothing to do with each other. So just like, okay. Thirdly, I have this little voice in the back of my head, and I want to revisit the issue of, I'm going to mess up the terminology, but the issue of this electrical switching gear in a building that is very vulnerable to a natural disaster that would take out the entire electrical grid for the campus. And I felt like we just kind of talked about that and said, "Ooh, that's bad," and then we went past it. So I'd like more information about that. And I'm looking at Jennifer, so thank you.
Okay. Building 12, was it? Yeah.
I know this is a little bit out of order, but just because you raised that, we do have an intention of bringing that topic back very, very soon. I think it's on the work session agenda, so that we can clarify, the situation. Thank you.
And then lastly, Celia received a letter from the city of Springfield, and she forwarded the letter to all the board regarding their housing diversity property tax exemption. And so I took a look at that and I said, I'm not sure I understand this. And so I called the city of Springfield and had a discussion with one of their housing analysts, and it was just really helpful for me to better understand the issue that is before the board. And I talked to President Bolger about it as well. And I'm wondering if it would be valuable at some time soon to have, her name's Katie from the city of Springfield, make a short presentation to the board regarding their housing diversity property tax exemption.
Okay.
That's it.
Absolutely. And just overall, just educational about the work that they're doing, or just purely on the tax aspect?
Purely on the tax aspect, because it's really a very narrow issue that the board needs to consider. It has nothing to do about the philosophical pluses or minuses about property tax exemptions. No, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with overlapping of taxing districts. And it was her brief conversation was really helpful to help me better understand that.
Excellent. Noted. All right, Lisa.
I wanted to go back to the vacancy application process. I personally am fine with this application. I think it's pretty straightforward and simple. Having filled out many questionnaires with 30 or more questions in the last 2 months, I appreciate the simplicity of this one. I would like to see us get this moving. And so I'd love to know if the board is okay moving forward with the application that we have. And then in terms of thinking about a timeline for applying, I do have concerns that, we're going into the summer months, and, that tends to be a time when a lot of people are not paying attention to these issues. But I think that in the past, we've done somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks for an application process. And I would be interested to hear from board members what they think would be appropriate length of time. The problem is that if we set a period of time, and it's like, let's say we set it for 6 weeks, we would be looking at some type of process that needs to happen in mid-July, and we take a recess in August, right? So I'm just curious how we want to schedule this and pace it out, because we will meet in July, and then we'll meet in June one more time, twice in July, and then, we take August off.
Excellent. Zach, feedback?
When's the tentative date for our retreat?
July 22nd, 20th, sorry.
2020?
20.
I mean, in an ideal scenario, we would be able to invite our new board member to join us for that retreat. If that's not possible, then I can see us taking a bit longer so that we get someone on before the fall. But I do, in an ideal scenario, we would be able to have someone join us in just a month and a half from now.
Okay. Kim?
Yeah, I would support the idea of doing things sooner rather than later. I mean, ideally, in my mind, we'd have the new board member in the fall, starting in the fall. It's an interesting idea to try and have the process completed by the retreat. That's intriguing. So part of me is thinking that we could accelerate the process to 4 weeks and still have time to review and approve.
Yeah. So essentially keep the application timeline open for 30 days, 4 weeks, and then review applications after that 30-day time period. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't have the calendar in my head, and that may bump into August. I don't know.
Yeah, totally. So if we had the application open for 30 days, obviously right after 4th of July, essentially would be when applications close. And then, and then obviously if we were to 2 weeks to review, that'd be pushing right into obviously the retreat time period. So yeah.
But what are the July meeting dates?
July 3rd and July 20th.
So there's no meeting on the 17th.
No, our retreat is usually our work session.
Okay. And then in terms of how you've done this in the past, would we be inviting people to interview in front of the full board? Would a vote come that night or 2 weeks later?
Yeah, I'll let Lisa. At least I went through this experience actually. So
I went through an experience. I was appointed through an experience, and I will say I think we've appointed at least 3 other board members since I've been on the board, maybe more. But typically in the past, we have interviewed every applicant. This board has had a practice of interviewing every applicant so that the process occurs publicly and transparently. And the first round of interviews have always been shorter. And then after those interviews, we have narrowed it down to our top 2 or 3 choices and invited those people back for longer interviews. And so it's absolutely up to this board to decide how they would want to approach it. But I do think, I'm fine with however fast we want to proceed after the application process, but I would feel uncomfortable with having less than 30 days to apply. And, that I don't know if we could get it out. If it were posted by Monday, the 10th, that would still be, I'm in the 24. If we posted it on Monday, June 10th, at the earliest, that would get us to July 8th as the closing of that application. And then, in the past, we have had special sessions to interview. We have not actually done the interviews in our board meetings. We've had special meetings to do this process. though we could be interviewing initial interviews on the 10th and then we, maybe, I don't know how many people we're going to end up with in this process. So
Yeah.
there were 15 people that applied when I was selected because it's an at-large seat. I think in this seat, there may be fewer.
Yeah.
Which will be helpful.
Absolutely. Zach?
But if the stars align for us to get this done before the 20th, awesome. I'm hearing it might be very difficult though, to, basically do this in 6 weeks. And so if it's going to take longer, then let's take our time with it. But if you are able to figure things out in the next couple days that we can do this quicker, then sounds great, and look forward to the process and getting another great member from Springfield to join us.
Absolutely. Does the board support the idea of having the application open till July 8th? Which would be a little bit over 30 days, essentially.
It would also give Celia a chance to get it out there. So
yeah,
I don't know, Dr. Bolger, if you feel like having it posted by Monday is a reasonable timeline.
Oh, it's reasonable.
Yeah.
Excellent.
The press release is ready to go, so we could do it tomorrow.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, if we could do it tomorrow, I would still feel comfortable though with July 8th being the deadline for it. Gives a few additional days after the holiday and so forth. So yeah, I think that I agree with Lisa in that greater than 30 days, and I think that would be perfectly sufficient.
I think that's a good goal.
Yeah, that sounds great. And then so at our next board meeting, can we add the interview times to the future meeting dates? If we need to add that to our schedule and our calendar and get those notes?
Yes, we can make something like that happen. Additionally, we'll also have at least an idea of how many applicants we have, which will be a good thing as well. So yeah.
I'm curious, so I haven't heard any comments on the application that we have in the packet. Are people?
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, great.
Okay with it.
Yeah. Any additional question or Denise?
Well, sometimes there's a phrase or a space. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us? So I don't know if people feel like that allows for something. I mean, I think it's well covered as far as education, community involvement, and of course, what you hope to contribute or what are the reasons that you're doing this. But to me, it's open, and it never hurts to just say, please feel free to share anything else you feel you'd like to share.
Gotcha. So like a question of like, so obviously we have community involvement, education, narrative, and then like a question of, is there anything you would like to share with us?
Yeah.
Excellent. I think that'll be an easy question to add on to that. And I think that would help. It's a way to get to know the individual. So yeah, absolutely. Other than that, just in regards to this, I think this is perfectly acceptable questions. And again, I think that the biggest thing is to go through the verification process that they are in district. And is there any other like district requirements? I'm looking at Brett here to like time period they have to live in the district or anything like that we need to be aware of as a board?
They have to be a registered voter.
Yep. Oh, wow. That's
or be eligible to vote.
Exactly. And obviously live in that district. There's no time limits, restrictions, or anything like that. Okay. So Lisa?
I believe they have to have lived in the district for a certain amount of time, but they must live in their zone, right? Like there isn't a time requirement for living in the zone.
I don't recall seeing a time requirement, but I will reread the statute and confirm that and let you know.
Okay, great.
Great. Thank you. All right. I think we got the feedback and the information that we need on that. As soon as we update that question and verify that, we'll be able to get this posted and get the process started.
Great.
Excellent. All right. Anything else in regards to board comments, questions? All right. Future meeting dates, we obviously have the 18th as noted, because of Juneteenth. We are not meeting on the 19th, so it's on a Tuesday. Board meeting on July 3rd. I just also wanted to note, in regards to, committees that, we, with Mike Eister leaving, we obviously will have an opening with LCOG and, with LEC. Lane Economic Committee. Is that what it's called? Okay. Maybe some additional information on that, just so that the board could be educated on those committees. And with my election as president with OCCA, that opens up a board seat for OCCA, so that we can have one of our board members sit on the board while I serve as president. So I just know that that board is going to be opening up as well. So, yeah. And then from there, any other questions? Oh,
Didn't we add to one of the future agendas that we would be looking at all of those positions collectively?
yes.
Okay,
Mhm. Yeah,
great. Okay.
absolutely. Yeah. I just wanted to like put it in,
Yeah,
in
totally.
individuals' minds and so forth. So, yeah. All right. We do have an executive session after this meeting. So we'll go ahead and move to adjourn.
How long of a break will we?
I'll do a 10-minute by